people, it means, okay, it's half an hour traveling, so I'm going to leave half an hour before because it works for me. But this is not going to work for somebody with ADHD
Mhm.
because time for us is not the same concept as for many others. We do not really have this intrinsic understanding of what time is. Um, and I have been known to sit at home and missing the flight because I was very clear, but the flight only leaves in an hour. Totally disregarding the fact that I actually had to travel for over an hour.
Welcome to Hacking Your ADHD. I'm your host, William Kerb, and I have ADHD. On this podcast, I dig into the tools, tactics, and best practices to help you work with your ADHD brain. Hey team, my guest this week is Dr. Ute Liersch, a chartered counseling and coaching psychologist with over a decade of clinical experience and author of A Minimalist Guide to Becoming Resilient. Dr. Ute specializes in helping adults navigate anxiety, ADHD, and burnout. Her therapeutic approach is integrative, drawing from modalities such as Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, CBT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, ACT, Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, EMDR, and mindfulness-based therapies. Beyond her clinical practice, Dr. Ute is an associate lecturer at Birkbeck University of London and holds a fellowship in higher education. In our conversation today, we explore the nervous system beyond the textbook fight, flight, freeze model and include how our nervous system shapes our mood, motivation, and even the ways that we see the world. Dr. Ute explains why so many of us with ADHD find that our sympathetic nervous system is permanently on edge, and how we can work on rewiring that response. We also talk about perfectionism, attention types, and what resilience looks like in real life, bringing it down into actionable steps that fit into our schedules and our ADHD brains. If you'd like to follow along on the show notes page, you can find that at hackingYourADHD.com/240. All right, keep on listening to find out how you can retrain your parasympathetic nervous system. All right, well, I'm so thrilled to have you here with us. And I think just looking over what you do and some of the stuff that we do, a great place for us to start would be to be talking about the nervous system, but more specifically, like I have a feeling that a lot of people like the nervous system. I know what that is. But then kind of if you ask them to explain it, they'd be like, it's the nerves.
Look, thank you for having me. Love the question because yeah, it is true. It's I do hear that. Oh well, I heard all about this. I know all about that. And I often agree that I say you probably have had the information, but you might not have had the chance to actually investigate what this means.
Mhm.
So if we look at, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, so that's the autonomous nervous system. So that's where we actually, as people, have very little control over. That's the system. I mean, it's so hugely and widely discussed. Of course, it's linked to fight, flight, freeze, and half of the people already stop listening because we know it. I would say we don't. Because what we do not understand is how complex that system is and what it actually does in a sense of how it affects our mood, how it affects our internal hormones, how it actually affects how we see the world.
Mhm.
Can I go straight into giving an example? Would this be okay, William?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be great.
So, when we talk, or when I talk to people or my personal history around ADHD, or people who are really neurodivergent, also people with autism, but the message is very often, since you are on this planet or since you have been thrown into the world, as Heidegger says, is that how you do stuff is wrong. So it doesn't matter how much you try, right? It doesn't matter how much in German we would say blood, sweat, and tears you put into a piece of work. What you will probably get back is not good enough.
Mhm.
So over time, of course, what we are linking with doing a piece of work. So, for example, let's say writing an essay, yeah, becomes linked with this understanding is not going to be good enough. And that's, of course, a threat, correct?
Yeah.
This means over time, we don't need the external world any longer to threaten us with it's not good enough. We are internalizing that threat. And that means that from a nervous system perspective, we are consistently working on a much higher threshold. And when we look at it from that perspective, it makes absolute sense that people with ADHD have a lot of anxiety. And
Mm.
when they are finished with fighting that anxiety, when they're done with running away with it because we are so depleted, this is when sadness sets in and when depression can set in. So we need to understand that how we are interacting with the world has immediate effect of how the nervous system reacts to it. And because it's autonomous, the sympathetic, so that's the fight, flight, freeze, and the parasympathetic, that's the one that is triggered when we are calming down, because we cannot really interfere with it. What happens over time is that the sympathetic nervous system gets much more active. We are much quicker in getting angry. We are much quicker in being anxious. We are much faster in feeling really low mood. And the parasympathetic, so the relaxing, cooling system, actually gets rather lazy because it's not nurtured.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because a lot of things with our brain have seen is like we use it or lose it, and yeah, if we're not ever letting ourselves relax, then
Yeah.
well, that feels very profoundly sad to think about.
Um, Interesting that you say it's sad. I think I can walk with you that it can have a very sad um, effect on lives.
Hmm.
I think why this information for me is so important and why I give this to people I'm allow me to say blessed quite often to work with, is because the moment we know that, we can start doing something with it.
Yes.
Because to me, whilst I understand sometimes ignorance is bliss because we don't have to think about everything, it can also be devastatingly disabling.
Hmm.
And the moment we know that we are probably living our lives with a sympathetic nervous system that is on high alert, that means that picks up threats much quicker and makes elephants out of small little mosquitoes, also because it's hyped up. The moment we know that, we can actually start working with it. And indirectly, we can start, pushing that sleepy parasympathetic nervous system through training. I know I'm a psychologist and I know I do therapy, but believe me if I say very often I substitute the word therapy with training because a lot of stuff I do is training.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because uh, it feels to me that many of the things we do is just it's the history of our habits and everything that this is what we're used to doing, and undoing habits isn't simply just talking about them. It's the repeated action of figuring out creating new ways of doing things.
Yeah. This as you say, habitual behavior, um, aut- automatic stuff we do. It's not intrinsically wrong. I mean, if we would have to learn everything anew, we would never be able to cycle or drive a car or walk or remember stuff. We need to, of course, have the ability to do stuff on automatic pilot. The problem arises is when we are not noticing when automaticity kicks in and we
Mhm.
are just doing the same old, same old, same old, same old, right?
Yeah.
So another example. especially in ADHD, we are told all the time we can't focus and we cannot be attentive, which is of course nonsense. We can. We do it differently, and we need to train in a different way in order to reach focusing and attention abilities that are needed in 2025. But it doesn't mean we can't do it. But of course, when you have this narrative, and if it's just told often enough, it becomes a habit that we say, "Oh, of course, look, I can't focus. I can't do this." So if you're able to read, let's say, one page, and afterwards you notice, "Oh, I'm 3 pages down, but I have no idea what I read because my
Yeah.
brain was somewhere different." I don't know if any one of your listeners knows that. I know that very well. You have a choice here. One choice is to say, "Okay, look, this is evidence that I'm incapable of doing it." Another choice is to say, "Okay, I can do 1 page. Now let me train to do 1.5." Because 3 clearly is not in our skill set today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm also thinking this is also a place where before my diagnosis, would obviously be like something that I'd be like, oh, I just need to keep pushing through here. I need to, you know, buckle down and just try reading the pages again. Of course, reading them again provides the same result, and then I do it again. And it never worked out in my favor, but it was, what I thought I had to do.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I remember when I did my exams, I was given, I th I can't remember, either 20 minutes longer to do exams or half an hour, I've forgotten, at university. So I was only diagnosed really late in life. Um, and this is something which I find really interesting because, of course, on the one side, giving more time means we have more time to work on something. But on the other hand, attention is more difficult. So I don't actually know whether I was able to focus on the essay with the extra time given, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've done tests with the extra time, and I'm like, that's not exactly what I need.
Correct.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes it was great, but most of the time it was like I still finished within the same amount of time that I was supposed to. I was just,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I I think, or at least that's my experience, and I'm just gonna share this. Maybe this works, for or this resembles other people's experiences also. What I noticed is the theoretical explanation of stuff uh, quite often wasn't really helpful. I had to have a lived experience of something in order to understand.
yeah, I mean, that explains a lot of my writing style when I'm doing the like monologue episodes for this show, where I will look up a definition of something to be, and I'm like, I can see what that is,
Yeah.
but what does it really mean to have, this idea of, whatever concept I'm trying to talk about? And it's in the process of like shifting that into a concrete example, I feel like that where I get a much better understanding.
Yeah. Um, Do you remember these Rubik cubes? I think they're
Yeah.
called in English, right? So I believe that my learning style is like a Rubik cube. Not that I have ever been able to do it through that flipping around.
Hmm.
I've taken the whole thing apart, stuck it together again. So what I want to say with that, my lived experience and the experience of many of the people I work with, or they've confirmed that, is we have to really take something apart into its pieces. We have to look at the pieces from all different angles. We then pop it together again, and then we understand.
And now I'm just thinking about Rubik's cubes, but because I'm like, I have one in the room over there, and yes, I also
Sorry.
solved one, but it's
But you know what? Do you know what I mean with that?
yeah, yeah, getting everything to go to fit together, and it's hard to get that back far enough to see the full picture of how that would work. Um, Because often I find that's the trick with like even like doing something like that where I'm like, I'm so focused on what's happening right here, I can't see what's happening elsewhere as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when we look at attention in ADHD, um, attention is quite often, spoken about in one word. But that's actually not true. We have focused attention. So where we say we go onto this particular thing. We have selective attention where we look at the horizon of life and we select what we are attending to. We shift attention, right? And I mean, it's quite often a big problem when you are focused on something and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Oh, do you want a cup of tea?" Gone.
Hmm.
Right? You could actually, I mean, I don't want to I don't want to sound aggressive, but in this moment you could murder that person because they've taken you away. And whilst of course, you were able to shift to them, but that's kind of a different neuronal charge that's going on here. You're not able to shift back any longer. And again, I find it really helpful in this moment to understand what type of attention is the one I'm struggling with? We probably struggle, and I mean struggle in comparison to other people who function on a different level in the world we are living in now. Sorry,
Hmm.
it's a long sentence. The reason why I say this is because the ADHD brain in the hunter-gatherer world is the brain of the leader. Because the qualities we are showing to the world at that time, these were all the qualities everyone needed, right? You don't need it. You didn't need somebody who is detail orientated all the time, but you needed somebody who shifts very quickly, who has
Hmm.
attention everywhere, who sees over there is the problem, and oh, let's just get everyone together and go, people. You needed people who didn't need a lot of sleep, who were attentive to the whole group, but were not really understanding of, okay, over there is Olaf and over there is Peter, because we can't remember these bloody names, but we can remember other things. So when I say the problem with, I want everyone to understand it's not an intrinsic problem. It's a problem that arises that because we are living in 2025. And the qualities we are having are not gelling very well with the demand the world puts on humans.
Yeah, well, especially when if you're viewing things as this community oriented, everyone has their job in place. But when we go move that into a everyone is an individual and they all need to do these various tasks, it's one of the greatest things I've done with doing this podcast is having someone that helps me do my editing, and I have someone that is a producer and helps me with emails and all the booking guests and all this other stuff. And I'm like, having this community of people that are working with me is so much better, and would took a long time for me to accept that I didn't need to do everything individually. Like,
Yeah, I oh, the sentence that comes in my head is this is kind of the curse of our lives because quite often our strengths are not really seen. We try to do right in everything. And I have yet to meet somebody and I normally diagnose, so I'm not working with children, I'm only working with adults. Sorry, I should have said that. So I see people who come to me, at the age of 70, and they say, Ute, something is wrong. I don't know. I just don't get it.
mhm,
When the diagnosis is there, or when they come with a diagnosis, what comes onto the table in the very same moment is profound sadness
mhm.
because the opportunities that were missed because the strength was not seen, but I have to be able to do everything was very much pushed. and it's simply not possible. We are good in some things, and we suck really badly in other things. So if you want to, I don't do my invoices in my private practice. I have somebody who does that because I would make mayhem out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, I remember every story people tell me because that's how my brain works. It took me years to acknowledge that it is okay. I'm a worthy person and I'm a good psychologist if I am doing that what I'm good at, and if I'm outsourcing the things I just today I say I don't want to do because they do not give me joy and I don't excel in them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's so amazing how things that are so inconsequential to our overall successful as a person can internally make us feel like we're like I can't keep my car clean, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm terrible as a person because of this, and it's like, what does that have to do with the things that you're good at and that you're the amazingly bringing to the world?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, and what bad does having a bad car bring to the world? Well, like it's smelly for me to drive in sometimes. Uh,
Well, what is that you drive it, right?
yeah,
But it's up to you.
yeah. And really, this is a place where I can 100% blame my children, which is fantastic escape.
I love it.
Yeah. Uh,
You know what we often do? Sorry, no, go ahead.
oh no, go for it. I was.
I think what we often do, at least what I realized, is when we are talking about something that we don't want in the other person, or we actually want to help the other person to get better, we are quite often using the words you are, so a form of to be.
Mhm,
So what we start to do is we critique or criticize or feedbacking the person, right?
mhm.
Whereas where I'm sitting today as the woman I am, I don't think I can feedback, critique, or criticize the being at all. What is always up for grabs is behavior. So in my previous life, I worked with children. I had a private learning institute, and the whole school run on 4 rules. And the first rule was we can always talk about behavior, and behavior can be helpful or hindering. Behavior can also be good or bad. The person can't,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And when we bring this into the world, the differentiation between um, I, you, throwing food on the floor is unacceptable behavior, rather than it makes you a bad person,
Yeah.
right? Then we have a very different way of communicating, of bringing standards and rules and discipline into life as a supportive scaffolding and mechanism, rather than a destroying of the human being on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me just like this differentiation between guilt and shame of like, I did a bad thing versus I am a bad person thing, whatever.
Yeah. Shame is such an interesting thing. I mean, but both concepts, right, are interesting because, like everything, they're not intrinsically good or bad.
Hmm.
They have a function, but if they are used as the thing, as the go-to, I've messed up an exam, and shame comes immediately always, then we are probably back in what we already discussed, automaticity.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, there's like aspects of like, yeah, I should feel shame about things where it is, if I'm acting racist, I should feel shame about being racist. I don't, that's not just I did a bad thing. I'm holding bad beliefs.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and, but if I can move on from those beliefs, then I don't need to feel shame about them. I used to. That's in the past.
Yeah. To me, the question is most of the time, what's the function of it, right? What is that thing I'm either feeling, or what is the thing I'm doing? What is the thing I'm thinking? What is this in service of? And is it helping me to actually live a life accordingly to what I think my purpose is, what my value is? Because what we then realize very quickly, that there is not a single thought, and there is not a single emotion, and there is not a single behavior that is in its core either good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And what we then notice is, if people mm, if people buy into that, I did some invertical commas with my fingers for all the listeners,
Yeah.
because I don't like the term buy into it. But if you think that's an interesting concept to look at, what it will help us to do is asking the question: is this what I'm doing right now actually a value-based action that supports my life, or is it an automatic action that is depleting my life? When you drive a car and you come to a red traffic light, I I think you would stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good rule. It keeps us safe. And so we would actually say it's a brilliant rule, 100% true. But what happens if you're driving an ambulance and you come to a red traffic light?
Yeah.
This rule could be threatening the life of the person who is on the stretcher at the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I have done nothing else, but I've changed the situation, only to show the same rule on the one side keeps us safe, so we don't, crash into each other. But there are other possibilities where it actually can take a life.
Yeah, and it can feel like I was like, well, like for a lot of us, it can feel like, well, that's the obvious exception, but it's not. We often don't apply those things to ourselves, where we're like allowing for that grace, or that, hey, yeah, this makes sense that that this is the way that I chose to make this action.
Correct. If the rule is you have to be on time out of whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
then for many people it means, okay, it's half an hour traveling, so I'm gonna leave half an hour before because it works for me. But this is not gonna work for somebody with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
because time for us is not the same concept as for many others. We do not really have this intrinsic understanding of what time is. Um, and I have been known to sit at home and missing the flight because I was very clear, but the flight only leaves in an hour. Totally, totally disregarding the fact that I actually had to travel for over an hour. And when people then get very quickly quite upset, but you know that, and why don't you do that? It's because the way my time environment works for me, the meaning of time, how I experience time, is probably not the same to other people. The moment I accepted that, and you were back in acceptance, right? I was able to work time differently. But that's my scaffolding. And if somebody takes this away, I feel very insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I need to have this to feel secure, so that my sympathetic nervous system is not going even more through the roof every time I go for a flight,
Yeah.
right? So I need this. I respect my own needs here. And if other people can't do this, then we make different travel arrangements. But I can't do it the way a non-ADHD person travels because it puts me in a place of despair.
Yeah. And even a way that like I've also known ADHD people that are like, yeah, I get so anxious about things, I don't even think about it. I just day of, I put everything in my suitcase and I don't want to plan anything and I just go. And I'm like, that would be horrifying for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this very like, we need to be individualized to how we're treating what works for us and what doesn't.
Yeah. And for that, we need to go away from that narrative we are wrong,
Mhm.
right? Because I would say that's a death argument. Because if you are buying into I'm wrong, there is not a lot of curiosity to understand how am I actually? Because I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
And for people who listen and who say, "But I am wrong," right? Who have this intrinsic belief, which has been planted and fostered over time. If we come to a place where we are willing for a moment to entertain the idea, if I would not be wrong, what would I need to feel safe? Not even doing it, not actioning it, not changing anything, entertaining the idea of willingness. I think this can help us to get to know us better, because then we can link into functioning on a very different level.
Mhm. And this is I think this is a good transition point because it's making me think about a lot about the idea of resilience, which is also your new book, A Minimalist Guide to Becoming Resilient. And I feel like, actually, how about you tell me a little bit about the book first, and then we can jump in from there.
Um, so I started to give talks around resilience because I was in I was not always a psychologist, right? I worked in the hospitality industry in hotels for many years, 12, 15-hour shifts, sometimes 24-hour shifts. And if the moment you got tired, people told you, well, you just got to be a bit more resilient. And now in my life, I work a lot also with people who are in very demanding jobs. And when they are, when they are angry or when they're anxious, what the corporate world happily says, well, it's just got to be a bit more resilient. So I gotten, excuse my language, really pissed off with using words which are not accurate in order to get something from people a system wants.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to do talks which are called progressive resilience, and it's about understanding the difference between being resilient and riding a demolition derby. Because resilience is sold as what toughness actually is. And if we are looking at the origin of resilience, resilience comes actually from material science. And what they do is they clamp this sheath of metal between two hands, and then they stress the metal with the weight, and then the metal bends. And the resilience measurement is the metal's ability to come back once the stressor has been released. When I read through it and when I looked at pictures, certain concepts came to my mind. Number one, in order to become resilient, life needs to stress you.
Mm-hmm.
Life is never stressful. You will never have to be resilient. Number one. Number two, that stressor, that weight must be heavy enough that you cannot stay the way you are. You need to move. Again, if you just have a little stressor and you can stay the way you are, you don't need resilience.
Yeah.
Information number three I drew out of that was we need to yield. If life pushes us hard, we need to yield in order to A, work the pressure, and B, work resilience. And that was the first idea of the talk. And this has built up over years. And the book is basically the book form of all the talks I've given.
Okay.
It's very, very short because, again, I have yet to meet a person who goes for a self-help guide when they feel very happy, you know?
Yeah.
You're not buying a book on how do I manage, I don't know, depression when you are on your honeymoon being happy. That's not happening. And what I thought is, or what I know is our ability to focus when we are stressed is even less there compared to when we are not stressed. So let's create a book that is minimalistic, very short. If you have 5 minutes a day, you can get a whole chunk of information and training in, and it's built modular. So you can build, you can listen to parts of it. There are some audio trainings in it. It gives you a very evidence-based, in-depth theory in 200 words.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's, and a lot of books are too long anyways. You know, like they like, it feels like they're like, it's like, you're like, well, the last 60% of this book is padding for this like idea in the beginning.
Can I just say it warms my heart that you say that. I tell you why. I wrote on the structure of the book for it over a year. How do I structure it? What works? What can we read? What is fitting in our lifestyle? What can my brain take, right? And of course, like everyone, I thought I need an agent, I need a publishing house, blah blah blah. And then you have to write to specification. So a self-help book specification, I think a minimum is 40,000 words plus, sometimes up to 60, 70,000 words. And the self-help books I read, I felt quite often the last 2 chapters were fillers.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from the authors. I just want to be very clear. I admire the work and the effort they put in. However, to me, the last 2 chapters often felt like fillers. And here again, I'm really holding up the flag for everyone who has a brain that works differently, rather than succumbing to, well, that's the deal of the industry. That's what you got to do. You have to tick these boxes. I said, no, I'm going to self-publish. I'm going to go the Kindle route and I'm going to print on demand for people who want it, because it allows me to write a self-help book that has actually 25,000 words. Plus the other 5,000 is bibliography and the index and all of that.
Yeah.
Unthinkable to get this printed and into bookstores.
Yeah, it's a funny thing how that works, where they're just like, yeah, this is, and it's a lot about meeting expectations. People will like be like, well, this is a short book, so maybe it won't hold the kind of information that I need. But also, in my experience, I'd be like, no, that's the one I want, because I know when I'm doing my writing, one of the most important parts is making things shorter. It's very easy to make things long.
Yeah.
Making things shorter and concise, that's a lot more work.
Yeah. I agree with it. I believe I think it was George Bernard Shaw who said, apologies for the long letter. I didn't have enough time to write a short one.
Mm-hmm.
It is incredibly difficult to bring things concisely into something. And you also got to own that you can't do everything. But you know what? For that, I have a bibliography. So if you're interested in a concept, I don't have to do everything, do I?
Yeah.
I can happily refer to people who are masters in the polyvagal theory because that's what they research. Don't need me for that. But I have to tell you where it is helpful to use that theory in order to have training that makes you more resilient. That's my job.
Yeah.
Mm.
So bringing this back onto resilience, if people wanted to start building more resilience into their life, what are some of the approaches that they might want to start thinking about?
So I'm very body focused. Like our body very quickly tells us when we come into a danger zone, or the better word is when we are stressed.
Mhm.
And when we build resilience, what we need to do, of course, in one side, we have to broaden our repertoire to calm us down. Back to our beginning, how can I start interacting with the parasympathetic nervous system? And there is one beautiful exercise, allow me to say that. It's a very old one. It's called Jacobson relaxation technique. It's not as sexy as mindfulness. But, oh boy, it works really well because it's physical. And very often when I work with people who are stressed and who know over time they feel that their body is tensing up. And when we are in that state of physical tension, what we don't know any longer is how does it actually feel when the muscle relaxes.
Mhm.
Because the tension has become the norm, right? And what the progressive muscle relaxation does, it takes you through the body, and it starts and it's an exercise where you tense all the big muscle groups one after the other. You count to 10, they even start shaking, you might have a little pain, and then you relax. So for many people, this is the first time that they actually notice how it feels in your body when you go from a state of tension, fight, flight, freeze,
Mhm.
danger. So the arousal of the sympathetic nervous system to a state of relaxation, which is the physical presentation of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's an easy exercise. If you want, I've got an audio. I can send the audio to you. You can link it in, and
Yeah,
people can
absolutely.
do it, right? And look, it takes 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just the it's just thinking about all the tension in my body right now. I'm like, I'm know what I'm doing after the conversation. So try that out.
Yeah, it's and this is of course not it's not that now I'm resilient.
Mhm.
Because the problem, of course, with resilience is that we are using a noun. And the noun has immediately in our linguistic network what it says, this is one thing, and it's a static thing. That's
Mhm.
utter nonsense. But there are a couple of things that should not exist as a noun, right? Because it gives us the wrong impression. We should only use it as a verb, as a doing word. In German, or when you're a little child, a verb is called a doing word. I think this
Mhm.
is beautiful because it actually describes what it is.
Yeah,
Resilience is
absolutely.
resilience is a doing word, right? So progressive muscle relaxation is one tiny little building block which can help you when you get really frustrated to bring the frustration into the muscles and then to bring relaxation into it. But what it does on a more meta-analytic understanding, actually, it will give you the ability to start looking after yourself too.
Yeah.
You start taking yourself seriously, right? I just got to plug in. I do apologize. I've got to. Can I just plug in?
Yeah, no problem.
Here we go. Thank you. And tools are good and well.
Hmm.
We need tools, but we also need to be able to allow ourselves to use them.
Yeah. And one thing I'm thinking too, about, given what how you're talking about, how the resilience comes where it comes from is it requires that you don't just keep adding more tension. So it sounds like this is something where we should also be thinking about perhaps lowering our load a little bit, even though that's can be a very scary thought.
Yeah. Especially again, I mean, I don't have to go through I think the brain theory that our brains are looking for stimulation left, right, and center because, the underdopamine brain theory, which we are having around ADHD. So we then might say, okay, I have to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 projects.
Mhm.
I believe it is true that we are probably not good in running one thing alone, but we also need to understand how many things we can actually do, that it helps our brain to be stimulated, but helps our body also to do it in a way that it's not exhausting all the time.
Yeah.
And some of us find it really cool that we do 10 things at once, but be careful that this is not ego. And when we notice that we are depleted, we have to do what you've just so beautifully said. We have to sometimes say, no. Is it comfortable? No, it's not comfortable. But if it's healthy, that's actually the choice we might want to consider.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that I do like the idea that it's like, yeah, you're looking for how much can I do
Mm,
without going over.
yeah,
But we also have to, like, if there's not enough, that's a problem for us too, which is
correct.
sometimes a hard concept to get your head around. It's like, but being like, I know everyone with ADHD is just like the idea of being like, oh yeah, we're gonna have nothing on your schedule. You just get to do whatever you want. And they're like, that's not. I need to have at least something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is okay. I mean, I don't read one book. Just want to be very clear. I have probably 4 to 5 books which I read simultaneously. Works very well for me. But don't ask me to have a book ready after a month, because that's not how I work. That's not how my brain does things, right? So, of course, when you are a student, it's incredibly difficult because you need to get that stuff into your head.
Mhm.
So, what you need to then do as a student, you have to work to a different schedule. It is incredibly important to have that schedule. And what many do is they of course, procrastination is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, today I didn't do my 10 minutes, so tomorrow I do 20. But what is if your brain doesn't do 20 minutes because it starts puking? My brain pukes. I'm sorry to say that, but when I was a student or when I wrote my thesis, I often said it feels my brain is puking in my skull. I don't know how to do this any longer, right? It was tension, unbelievable. And we need to understand what we can do and got to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's not going to help if you don't have stimulation. You're going to get the stimulation, but you're going to get the stimulation with stuff that is solidly built to keep your attention. I'm talking TikTok, I'm talking Reels, regardless, but they don't actually take you anywhere.
Yeah. This is I was laughing because this was reminding me of just something where I had to like write like a 10,000 word essay or something. It was a very long essay. And I had like a couple weeks to do it. And I'm like, okay, I need to write 500 words a day and it'll be easy. And then it was like, okay, well, I'll need to write 1,000 words a day and I'll get there. And it was like, eventually it was like, I need to write 5,000 words today and 5,000 words tomorrow. And it was still like I wrote like 2,000 and then 8,000. But
Nightmare, right?
yeah.
And what it takes away is the joy. I worked with one student, ADHD, and they said the following: I'm sitting in front of the empty page for hours. Because if I don't get it right from the beginning, everything is wrong. Many of us have that, right? If the first sentence isn't right, the whole project is wrong.
Mhm.
And we worked for a month on the following skill. Write a paragraph, whatever it is. And we started to write the paragraph always with the same sentence. This is a shitty topic. I don't like it.
I've written stuff
Sorry
that
to
starts
say
that
that,
way.
right? This is a shitty topic. I don't like it. I would rather do Instagram now. And so it was like that. And I said, it needs to be a paragraph. And then once you're finished with a paragraph, carry on writing. And you know what it did? It took away that hurdle of beginning.
Yeah.
Because they could simply write.
Yeah. Often, when I'm writing for episodes, I'll do this thing I call pre-writing, where I just write out what are the questions I want to answer. Let's copy and paste some quotes. Let's write some ideas down. And then sometimes I'm like, just end up writing the episode in the pre-writing thing and then kind of just tweak it and move it over. But a lot of times it's the removal of this. This is going to be the thing I'm making that has made it so much easier to get started.
Yeah. Write something where you know you're gonna delete it.
Mhm.
Because then what we can actually do is we can overcome a hurdle before we go into the academic work or the performance part. We can work with all of these, yeah, but what if I don't do it right, or if the first sentence is not correct? I mean, I've known people who have, when we still had pen and paper, I mean, I've done this. If the first letter on the page wasn't right, I tore out the whole page.
I've never done anything like that.
Yeah, I told
Oh,
you
yep,
I'm
maybe
quirky.
apparently quite a few times.
I told you I'm quirky.
Yeah.
And, I did this again and again and again and again, and I didn't get the homework done
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't perfect. And it doesn't need to be perfect. And once you are in that automatism that we got to be better than we are, because clearly how we are is not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
writing down the first word, even though to the outer world it's just a word,
Yeah.
it's simply a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to get past that. But there's things like I think the important part to take from there is that while it is hard to get past some of that internalized perfectionism, it's something that we can do things about. There are ways that we can fight against it. And it's, I think, like as we were saying, talking earlier, like, yeah, once we have that knowledge that, hey, there's something I can do, oh, so much better.
Yeah. I refuse, well, I'm very feisty sometimes, I refuse to not shine.
I like that. All right. Well, we're coming up on time here. So I was wondering if there were any final thoughts you wanted to leave the audience with.
Look, the most important thing is to start believing in your own worth.
Mm.
And the moment you allow your worth to be seen, what you will notice, many of these so-called mental health issues are going to shift. And I can really encourage everyone to take out this idea of when I make a mistake, this is evidence of not being worthy. When you make a mistake, this is evidence of learning.
Yes.
And that has got a lot to do with being worthy.
That's great. All right. And if people want to find out more about you, about your book, where should they go?
So I was able to set up the pre-order on Kindle. I'm very proud of myself. It
Awesome.
was 4 hours. Well, apparently takes 30 minutes, but hey ho, I took afternoon. So the book is called The Minimalist Guide, Becoming Resilient. It's on pre-order on Kindle, and they can find me on your website. And if they Google me, they find me. And if you want, I'm happy to send you links around ADHD masterclasses. They're just on YouTube, right? So people can just access them. I've just filmed one last week around attention, what different types of attention there are, and how we can actually start looking at them.
Awesome. Well, I think people would really appreciate that. And thank you so much for your time today. This was really enlightening.
Thank you so much for having me, Roland. Thank you.
Thanks again to Dr. Ute for coming on the show, and thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. Before you go, though, let's do a quick rundown of today's top tips. 1. Our parasympathetic nervous system can get stuck in a permanent state of go time. To help move our nervous system back to a relaxed state, Dr. Ute suggests progressive muscle relaxation, where you are tensing and then releasing muscle groups one at a time so that you can physically feel the shift from tension to ease. 2. Many of us have internalized the idea that there's something fundamentally wrong with the way we work, think, or exist. Dr. Ute suggests replacing this assumption of personal defect with curiosity. If we weren't wrong, what will we need to feel safe? This slight shift can open up room to problem solving and tailor strategies to our actual needs. 3. We often talk about resilience like it's a fixed trait. You either have it or you don't. But Dr. Ute points out that resilience is about what you do, not what you are. It's built in small, repeatable actions that teach your nervous system and your mind how to recover from stressors. Resilience isn't about holding it together forever. It's about giving yourself enough space and recovery so that you can keep going when you need it the most. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. Feel free to connect with me over at hackingyyouradhd.com/contact. And if you'd like links or to read this episode's transcript, you can go to the show notes page at hackingyyouradhd.com/240. And if you'd like even more Hacking Your ADHD, be sure to sign up for my newsletter, Any and All Distractions, which comes out every other week. In it, I give out my best distractions of the week, be they what I'm reading, what I'm playing, or what I'm watching. I also try to give out a few bits of actionable advice in each newsletter, although your mileage is going to vary there. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, head on over to hackingyyouradhd.com/newsletter to sign up. I also want to make sure you know about the Hacking Your ADHD Patreon, which you can find at hackingyyouradhd.com/Patreon. It's a pay-what-you-want model, meaning that you receive all the same stuff, regardless of how much you pay. And the Patreon also gives you access to the Hacking Your ADHD Discord. So if either of those things sound like something you're interested in, you can head on over to hackingyyouradhd.com/Patreon. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/@hackingyyouradhd. And finally, if you'd like another way to support the show, the best way to do so is to tell someone about the show, especially if you think a particular episode would resonate with them. Just click the share button on your podcast player. And now for your moment of dad. You know, I'm getting so good at sleeping, I can practically do it with my eyes closed.